Welcome to the Draft Stack. It's just me today. um, so we're gonna cover some guards that have kind of stood out the last few weeks. Um, Shout out to Jordan. I can't wait till he gets back. I'm gonna give a little bit of a rundown on kind of like what guards we're gonna cover, and then I'll give you kind of what I've enjoyed about their games. So Keaton Wagler, name that's been floating around quite a bit. Um, I think the height, the size, is intriguing to me. I think that he plays with interesting pace. He creates space for himself out on the floor. Can shoot the ball proficiently. So we're gonna deep dive on him for sure. Darius Acuff Jr., who I think is, if not top five, probably the best, one of the best point guards in the country right now. And is poised, plays really with a lot of aggression, controlled aggression at that. Then you got Kingston Flemings, who he matched up with recently, another point guard who I believe plays the game with a cerebral pace and is capable of doing some really brilliant things for his team. And then lastly, you got LeBaron Philon, who again, different kind of guard, more of a combo guard ish, is a crafty playmaker. Um, does have the ability to use the floater and the pick and roll, with advanced utilization. So let's break some of this down here. So just started with Keaton Wagler, uh, 6'6". He's about 180, I believe it's 185 pounds. Um, does need to add a little bit of muscle, but overall his game does not need that. He just creates exceptional space. Can handle the ball, does have the ability to play with the ball in his hands, but is accurate from both mid range and from deep, and can create a shot off the dribble. But I do think he's also proficient at the catch and shoot aspect. Um, he's not elite in speed, um, and he's more crafty than he is, a force kind of player, playing with force. But his impact on the game isn't any less forceful, to be truthful. I do think that his handle could be a little bit tighter, and as defense is starting to, will start to game plan for him, he's going to need to be able to have counters for elite defense and game planning. I believe it's his release can start a little bit low, but overall his game, man, he's strung together a few games. He went under the radar a little bit for some people. I have seen his name floating around from other scouts and others covering this upcoming draft. So I believe he's an interesting prospect. Does have 3-and-D skill. Will need to up his defensive ability at consistently, um, playing at that level. And overall, just going through my notes here, he is still developing some vision and decision making. Obviously, he isn't the point guard on his team, so being more comfortable with creating uh, for others aside from himself could expand his game. And I think his ability to get open, create space, will improve over time as this season progresses. Um, Really has consistent motor, has a competitive edge, plays within control, um, just gritty, not afraid of contact. And so really I think he's a tough player. He is going to go, um, he's getting talked about, which with to my opinion is deserved. I do think that there are other guards on this draft that people are likely going to tout over him, but the shooting, if I believe the shooting is real, and I do, and there's larger sample size to be seen, so we'll see what that looks like as he continues to, as he plays tough competition. We'll see what the offense looks like, but overall, I really do believe that he's a talented player, interesting for what he does at Illinois. Um, and then we're moving from Wagler to Darius Acuff Jr. Unbelievable prospect, solid, strong frame. At 6'3", weighs 190. Does not look like he weighs 190. Looks like he weighs 205. His burst both laterally and verticality wise is unbelievable. Um, I think he's talented with the ball in his hands and creating for others. Um, does have an elite first step. And so the interesting thing for me is seeing how he continues to add to his game to game, and is able to put together his offense in a versatile kind of way. He's capable from shooting, does shoot with repeatable shot prep. Um, isn't the He's not the shooter that Wagler is as far as from deep, but he can shoot respectively. He will make you respect him, and that does create driving lanes for him. Um, I do think that he has the ability to pick and roll. A few of the guys on this breakdown will also share that ability. Good with pocket passes. Um, does score first. Can sometimes over dribble a little bit. Not to nitpick too much. I do think that he's a solid player. Strengths on the on ball defensive side, does have mature footwork and is able to play with his chest, less with his hands. It does compete on the ball. Now, I will say that he's not a lockdown defender, but he is competitive defensively, and that's what you want from a player who's developing his game. So from there, his positional fit over time, I do believe that he fits what you want from a point guard. Obviously, the league is trended towards much taller guards at the point guard position. However, I do believe his frame size and the way he uses his body will allow for him to be a solid NBA point guard at some point. We'll see what that looks like. I'm being tentative about that, but I do believe that uh, wherever he gets drafted, he is going to give them solid minutes on the professional level. We'll see what that looks like. Um, from him to Kingston Flemings. So 6'4", the wingspan is 6'9", does have an elite first step as well, does have verticality, can get up off the floor. He is versatile, can score off of closeouts, does use angles well, plays with a nice smooth pace, has a nice arch on his release, and is pretty tough from the free throw line at, I believe, 85%. His playmaking vision, does make quick decisions with the ball, does make reads with the ball, and does have the ability to have high end passes that you're like, man, he made that pass for his age. That's unbelievable. So that's kind of the player he is. Defensively, does have a high floor for playing physical defense. Another kind of guard who is able to play with core and chest versus using his hands, and for the most part stays out of foul trouble. We'll get onto numbers here in a little bit. Um, I believe that he's a nice two-way guard. He is in good coaching company. He is being coached well, and so I think he's going to continue to round out his game and continue to show his skill set at how to refine some of the points of his game that I believe Sampson is going to take a look at and point to on the film and say, hey, this is where I think you could be better. So I like his game. I'm intrigued. He's moved up the board, and to note that before we get to LeBaron, I believe that the way and how much talent exists in this draft for a plethora of reasons, we're going to see a lot of names shuffle down and some shuffle up, depending on what need is. We saw it with this previous draft where some names went much earlier than people anticipated. And so I believe with guards, we're doing guards this week. Next week will be forwards, and then following that will be bigs. But overall, it is intriguing to me to see how much talent is at the guard spot overall in the country. And there's some guys that are likely going to get overlooked because there is so much talent. It's crowded. The scoring has been solid from a lot of these guards. And so I just decided to target these four because I believe they're the ones who have stood out in big games, have been played against some talented teams, and has shown their ability to show up and show out. So I'm intrigued to see what boards look like heading closer and closer to the draft and into the new year. And with March, I mean, I know it doesn't seem like it's right around the corner, but it is right around the corner. Um, with March right around the corner, excited to see how much talent is showcased and how much players up their games, especially in the guard position. And I do think there are quite a few teams that need guards up in this upcoming 2026 draft. So just for these guys showcasing their talents, I do believe that there is a substantial amount of talent still I haven't even touched on. And I'm sure I'll round back to that with Jordan. But um, so to LeBaron Philon, 6'4", a little less heavy on in frame. However, very crafty, 3-level scorer. Does have exceptional touch around the rim. Doesn't necessarily finish above the rim all the time. Can do so. Does play at angles. 3-point shot is kind of shaky. Can shoot the ball. Not saying he can't shoot the ball. Not saying that he's incapable. I'm just saying that he isn't the shooter that, for instance, Wagler is, who is primarily getting quite a few of his shots from the 3-point line. But what he does excel at is playmaking vision and defense. High motor, high level, composed with the ball in his hands, and excellent at protecting the ball. Has a precise, approach to his game. Sometimes he does push the limit with forcing some of those passes into tight windows. However, I think that's just one of those things of wanting to get guys the balls in optimal spots and reacting to what the defense is giving. He could work on not forcing things as much, but overall, I believe that you're seeing a player try to think it through and solve things on the floor on the go. So between that and then the defense, the on-ball defense, pesky defender, does use his quickness, has great anticipation, and is able to play with his hands a little bit to disrupt, and can get some on-ball steals. On the off-ball defense, and I kind of missed that for some of the other guys, but for the off-ball defense, he does rebound well for his size, and is super competitive, does hustle, gives a lot of effort. And so I, again, going back to my point for Fleming, do believe he's a modern NBA playmaking point guard. And I don't necessarily want to box him into point guard because I do think that with the way that the league is right now, you can be a playmaker from both guard positions. I'm not saying that he won't lead, that he can't be a lead guard in certain situations, and depending on where he gets drafted, and if he decides to go and decides to declare and that whole process. But overall, I will say that I believe he's excellent for what I believe the league needs in playmaking guards, and focusing on kind of on the ability to score, featuring it as a part of their game, but also has the ability to play make. So, which is important. So let's go over the numbers of these prospects over the last couple, just recent games. We'll go over recent games here. So Wagler had a really good game. I was impressed with his shot creation, and it's intriguing to me on two fronts. The first is he didn't take a lot of shots, right? So efficiency is something that's always going to be important, especially for young guards, and their ability to score the ball. Now, the game ended out in the blowout, but the minutes here's the stats. So 34 minutes for Wagler, 22 points, 7 for 11 shooting, 5 for 6 from 3-point line, shot 3 for 4 from the free throw line, had 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, 1 turnover, and 1 personal foul, which, again, that is sound for somebody his age and has showed a bit of poise. So I'm intrigued to see how much of this shooting continues to be real. I think shooting 5 for 6 is great, stays within the flow of the offense, and he doesn't hijack what they need. He gets them what they're looking for. And the low fouls and low turnovers is also important, as he does have the ball in his hands occasionally and is creating for himself. So I believe that I do wonder not so much the point total, but the efficiency, how he got to the shots, and how he's able to continue to add nuances to his game. I'm intrigued to see what that looks like throughout the rest of the season upcoming. For Darius Akov Jr., the minutes 39. He had 27 points. He shot 9 for 15, 1 for 3 from three, which is not a big amount. So, I'm not really concerned about the 3-point shooting as much. What I do like is that he shot 8 for 11 from the free throw line. I do think he cleaned that up. 10 out of 11 would have been better. That's a difference between winning and losing the game throughout a game's kind of like flow. 7 assists, 5 rebounds. He did have 4 turnovers, unfortunately, 3 personal fouls, which I think it just comes from trying to play, aggressive defense. Does need to control that a little bit more so that he can continue to be available for his team. 1 steal, 1 block. Akov is an interesting player for several fronts. He plays bigger than his stature gives off. As I mentioned before, he is a solid prospect at 6'3". And so I like his game a lot. He did come up against the guy that I'm going to talk about his numbers here right after. But Akov is an interesting prospect. I think that overall, we're going to see him move up the board if he can continue to string these good games to great games together. And he's going to be on a lot of radars. A lot of teams are looking for a guard of his skill set. And so I'm intrigued to see what he looks like throughout the season as well. Houston, again, against Houston, and playing for Arkansas. And so that moves us to Kingston Flemings, who finished with 21 points, 7 for 15. He went 0 for 2 from 3, which, again, I'm not really concerned. It's not over 6. It's not over 5. Took the 2 shots, didn't make them, tried to impact the game in a different way. Free throws were 7 for 8. Rebounds were 6. He had 5 assists, 3 steals, 0 blocks, but he had 1 turnover. He did have 4 personal fouls. Again, I just think that's from being a two-way player. You're going to play aggressive defense. You're going to try to create turnovers and opportunities for your team, especially at the lead guard position. But overall, the numbers are great. Efficiency is not terrible. I do think shooting close to 50% is still good as efficiency is concerned. Getting to the line, shot 87% overall from the line. So, I like these young guards that I've decided to cover. And I'm intrigued to see what they continue to do to impact their teams, not only in the scoring perspective, but in the playmaking perspective, keeping turnovers low, and what their games look like overall as the season progresses. And as March, as I'm going to state that again, as March kind of rolls around the corner, this year went by quickly. I think that the following year is just going to follow suit. March will be right around the corner and knocking on the door, and so these guys are going to be featured and as the leaders and leading their teams and seeing how they are able to impact winning and continue to contribute in a big way for their squad. So from Kingston Flemings to LeBaron Philon, had 17 points. He played 27 minutes, 2 for 6 from 3, which isn't great, but he took the shots. He did make 2. 1 to 2 from the free throw line. I would love to see him continue to try to find his way to the line to continue to add some flow to his game. 2 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals. Pesky, as I mentioned, with his hands on the defensive end. 2 turnovers, which is not bad. No personal fouls, which is unbelievable. I think he played a clean game and gave them what it is that they needed. Didn't shoot 50%, but 43% is not bad, or close to 44%, not terrible. Again, I do think that the free throw shooting could be cleaner. And so I love the way that they play the game. I like the assist totals from Akov, who had 7. You had Kingston, who had 5. And then you had Philon, who had 6. And Keaton Wagler had 4, but he's not a point guard per se. So these guys are featuring shot opportunities for their teams and not just scoring, not focusing purely on scoring, but having imprints on each part of the game. And I think that's what's going to make each of these guys being looked at March time, draft time, workouts, upcoming combine, some of that stuff that takes place during that process. What's going to be interesting about them is continuing to add to their playmaking and featuring other guys. on the floor and how they get them involved while also being able to balance scoring. So, this is an interesting guard class. I'm sure maybe some people kind of predicted that this would be the case. So I'll just go over their numbers for the season so far. I believe, let's see here. So Keenan Wagler, 15.7 points, 5 rebounds, 3.3 assists. He's shooting 45% from the field, 43% from three. Um, doesn't have a high turnover rate, is averaging about 31.5 minutes. Doesn't have high steal or block rate. However, the other numbers are impressive, and 83% from the free throw line. So solid season for him so far, especially since he's not the primary focus on offense, but does give his team solid contribution. Darius Acuff is at 18.9 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 6.2 assists. He is shooting 48.8 field goal percentage, and then 43.8 from the 3-point line. Do want to see him go from 72.5 to 75 or 80% from the free throw line. I'm not sure how much he can do that within the next few months, but I would love to see that he would do so. Only 2 turnovers for the season overall per game, and about 32.8 minutes per game. So continues to contribute with big minutes. Kingston Fleming's 15.3, 3.5 rebounds, 4.9 assists, field goal percentage, and I believe I have these numbers right. He is shooting close to 55% field goal percentage, 48.4 from three, 78.4 from the free throw line, 2 steals, 2 turnovers. Do think he could clean that up. That will continue to add to the playmaking, and then he's at 29.6 minutes per game. And then finally, LeBaron Philon at 21.9, 3.6, 5.6 assists. I believe he's at 50%, 50 or higher percent from the field, 42.2% from the 3-point line. Sample size wasn't really big his last game. Free throw shooting needs to improve at 72.4. Does have 1.4 steals, so that's a block and a half, and does have 2.8 turnovers. I do think that he needs to clean that up. Those 2.8 should be assists, and that way maybe kind of curbing how much he forces passes into tighter spaces and is able to kind of create a different opportunity for his teammates. And then is playing 28.8 minutes per game. So each of these guys, man, I'm excited about their games. I'm excited about seeing how they, and how I have them broken down is Key Wagler is as a 3-and-D wing, or at least because of his size. I think he's more guard than wing, in my opinion. Does have positional size and good shot prep, so the shooting is smooth. Does have first round potential. Darius Acuff, scoring playmaker, does look to score first, does get guys involved, does have good vision, has some toughness to him, and poised with his shot creation. Casey Fleming is explosive on both sides of the ball, and I do believe that he's going to continue to move up and up and up the board. I'm intrigued to see what decisions teams make with some of these guys heading up into draft time. And then LeBaron Philon, as a crafty playmaker, does have an intriguing way of operating within the pick and roll and using his floater, and has good soft touch. I want to see where he lands in the draft with so much talent that exists from 1 all the way to 30, and then from 30 down. There's still guys that I believe in the second round who can contribute to their teams. So I'm intrigued by each of these guys. These are guards. Next week it'll be forwards. I'm excited to talk about some of the forwards we have, coming up. I'm going to continue to give, good information about what I think, what some of these players look like, and how they might shuffle the board with their play, where they maybe weren't necessarily as high previously, but as they continue to give impressive showings, it's hard to not move them up the board and consider that some teams are just going to take the best player available. Obviously, the top 3 is what it is. I do believe, and I'm saying top 3. I believe top 4, kind of. Those last 2 spots to me are wrestling between Caleb Wilson and maybe Koa Pete. some of the guys that and you might classify. You could maybe classify. I do think Caleb Wilson is more of a forward, a power forward. Obviously, I don't think that he's your big man, big man. Um, However, I think he could play either position depending on what you're looking for and depending on team philosophy. So, but those are some of the guys that we'll touch on. I'm going to give continue to add some research and see some of these games, and I hope to continue to give some good podcast and show episodes for you guys. Can't wait till Jordan is back. Solo Dolo is cool, but I definitely I definitely appreciate having a co-host and his contribution to what we do here at Draft Stack. I don't have much else to say. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have comments or anything like that, definitely retweet and put that stuff out there. Like if you're watching on YouTube, continue to try to put out quality for you and give you the best that we can. So thanks for all of those who hung out watching with me and got to hear me kind of give a little bit of a breakdown for those who kind of started late. This will be available for you to watch and rewatch. If you have any comments or things that you think feedback is needed, I'm definitely open to that. Questions and thoughts, definitely here for that as well. Appreciate you guys. Catch you on the next one. Peace.